Okay, we're back. Our second video for our Terracotta Warrior Week 2, and we are going to talk about face. Today we're actually only going to get done the nose and the eyes, then the upper eyelids. So the first thing we're going to do is add the nose because the eyes are going to be really delicate and easy to mess up. And so we kind of just want to get the nose out of the way first. We should already have some eye sockets from week 1 pressed into your clay. What I want you to do now is right below kind of that space between the two eye sockets, we're going to scratch and score just a little area where the nose is going to go, right? When we look at this from the side profile, we know if we were to look at any real person side profile, it would not be flat, right? We would see a nose coming out, and that's what we need to add. So just scratching and scoring in that little section below the nose, or below the eye sockets, kind of the bridge of the nose is right here. And then I'm going to take a little piece of clay and just roll it into a ball. And I want you to add it to that place we scratched and scored, and just as a ball, right? It's really just more important to get the clay there in the first place. So it's going to look like a clown nose or like a Rudolph nose. That's fine. Just get the clay there. So I'm going to scratch and score the ball. Again, it's going to look kind of silly at first, like a clown. And I'm going to press it on there and get it attached. Zoom back down. So now that we've got that added, we're going to start shaping and forming it into a nose. I'm going to take this top part here. I'm putting a little bit of water on my fingers so it glides a little easier. And I'm going to start blending that circle up into the bridge, right? This part that's between the eye sockets. Already that's looking better. And then I'm also going to shape the bottom part into a bit more of a nose kind of shape. Remember, you're the designer here. You can decide if you want to make a big nose or a little button nose. You can decide the shape, right? One thing that I advise kids to do is to look at it from the side and see if it kind of makes sense. I also tell kids, if you're at home, at school we're here in masks all day, but if you're at home, look in the mirror, look at your own nose and kind of compare it to what you see. Or even what can be even more helpful is feel your own nose, touch it, because we want to try and get that same shape 3D here. I'm going to leave it at this point for now. This might take you might have to pause the video and get caught up. Next class, it's really soft right now. So next class, once it's more to the leather stage, I'll probably add some nostrils and maybe a little bit more detail. That's a pretty darn good start, if I don't say so myself. Looks good. So now let's talk about the eyes. The eyes, we are going to think about the actual anatomy of a person's eye. And underneath our eyelids, our eyes start with an eyeball, right? We have eyeballs underneath all the skin on our face. And so we're going to just do that. We're going to make eyeballs here to start. So I'm going to take a little piece of clay and roll it on my hand and create, I think that's a little big, but I'm going to create an eyeball that's going to rest into that eye socket. That one's a little big. I just got rid of some clay, rolling it around. That looks pretty good. Remember, we're not going to see this whole thing. Just like how you were to look at a person, if I were to look at you right now, I would not see your entire eyeball, right? That would be kind of creepy. We've got eyelids that kind of cover the eyeball, right? And only part of it we actually get to see. So like here's one of my examples, right? You can actually tell underneath these eyelids, it started with an eyeball. That's what we're going for with our project too. So we're going to add the eyelids next. But before we move on to that, I want you to make the second eyeball because it's easier to have a match now than to have to do it later. Those look pretty close to the same size to me. Again, that might take you a second. Before we move on to add the eyelids, we're going to scratch and score and just make these a little bit more secure in the eye socket, just to be safe. I'm going to scratch and score inside here, and very carefully scratch and score the back of the eyeball, and just lightly secure it so it's not totally loose there. And I'll do the left side too. Scratch and score. Kind of twist it on there. And then you should have both of those locked on and attached secure. And now we'll do eyelids. Okay, so I've got those attached. Now I'm going to make eyelids. And when we think about eyelids, they're really just really thin pieces of skin, right, that cover our eyeball. And so we're going to make really thin pieces of clay to cover part of our eyeball. So I've just taken a little piece of clay and I'm going to press it in between my fingers and make like a tiny slab, right? A tiny flat piece of clay, really small, really thin. And what I'm going to do, I don't really care about any of these edges and what shape they are. The only one I care about is the bottom. This bottom one, I want to see a little bit of a curve to it. So if I'm looking at it, right, I don't care about any of these other shapes, just this bottom one where there's a curve. I'm going to lay this on top and you'll be able to see what'll happen. Right, that curve is going to go over the eyeball, and look how good that looks, just laying it on there. So a thin slab, you're pressing between your fingers, and then a curved bottom. Once you've got that ready, I'm going to scratch and score basically where the eyebrow would go. And I'm going to very carefully scratch and score the back of that tiny slab that I just made. And then I can lay it, kind of get it in position where it's covering part of the eyeball. Just lay it on there. And then I didn't care about any of these sides because all of those are going to get blended in to the head. I'm not going to blend in this line that's by the eyeball, right? I want to keep that really nice and crisp, but all around it's getting blended. And look at that. Easy. You got this. I'll show you the left side in 1 second. Oops, I lost the left eye. I'll show you the left side in 1 second. All right, so now we've got the left side. I'm taking a small piece of clay again. I'm making a thin piece of skin eyelid, a thin piece of clay, pressing it between my fingers. And remember, I don't care about any of these other edges or what they look like. The only one I care about is the bottom one, that it has a little curve to it, right? A little bend. And then we can already see what that's going to look like. If I lay it so it covers the top part of the eye, I'm going to scratch and score where the eyebrow would be. Scratch and score very carefully this really tiny, fragile slab of clay. Get it into position. Try and get it to match the one on the right. And then I can press it down and smooth and blend all of those edges so that they disappear. And I don't even have to see them anymore. So this is actually where we're going to stop for today. We're going to start next week with the lower eyelids. They are going to be done the exact same way. You could even skip ahead and do them now if you're feeling super confident. So yeah, here we go. Make sure that you wrap up your project well so it doesn't dry out, and to be continued next week.